Hi, this is Movie Recap and is the movie Lockup 2010. A father exiles his disobedient son to a special boarding school, a torture center where they teach him to control his aggression. The movie, based on real events, begins with the teenage protagonist Fran chatting with his best friend and girlfriend over video chat. He is drinking a beer in front of his computer and smoking. Suddenly, his father Louis walks into the room. He has to get up early and the loud noise prevents him from sleeping. The teenager rudely snaps at the old man to get lost, but his father won't leave. He tries to talk to his son while his friends wait patiently. In the morning, unspoken and irritated Luis goes to work managing the store. The slobbering Sonny is having fun in the meantime. Forgetting school. He smokes with friends, listens to music, boozes, and fondles with a girl. Later, the father is informed that Fran has long ago dropped out of school and then calls from the hospital and asks to pick up the offspring. He gets into a fight. The man has to go to the emergency room where the parents of Fred's friend are already waiting. They say that Fran is a bad influence on their child. After waiting for the end of the examination, Luis picks up his son. He tries to talk to him on the way home, but in the underground garage he snaps and wants to leave. The man catches up with his son, but the teenager yells at him and slaps him, then runs away. When Luis returns home in the evening, his son is gone. He has gone to a disco to party with his friends, dancing, singing, and sniffing illegal substances. A father alone lighting candles on a birthday cake. His son turns 17. Worried that he cannot find a common language with his child, Louis searches in the internet ways of communicating with teenagers. He stumbles upon an advertisement for a program SIMCA, specially psychological correction of aggressive behavior. Parents of troubled teens share their experiences, how difficult it was for them to communicate with their children before and how easy it became after. While watching the commercials, Luis does not notice how time flies. At night, a stoned Fran staggers down the hallway. The boy freezes at the ajar door to his father's room, but he turns out the light to avoid another unpleasant conversation. The next day, Luis goes to Simp's presentation. The imposing coach gives a rousing speech about how discipline will help instill in spoiled kids real values and determination for a successful business. While he listens to the speeches, his son is on the phone drinking alcohol. Migu, at his mother's urging, disavows his friend, and the girl insinuates that nothing serious has happened between them. So it is not a good idea to make far-reaching plans. A frustrated Fran continues to pour out his grief. That's how his father catches him in the evening. In the night, two specially trained men toss the half-naked teenager out of the bedroom. He fights back, kicking and screaming and calling for his father. But Luis has already prepared a suitcase of belongings and escorts his son to the boarding school at the door. The guy is thrown into a minivan and driven down a scenic serpentine road away from the city. There he is met by his father, Oscar. The chief of the male educators is not satisfied that the newcomers are barefoot and half-naked. The pupils should observe discipline and come dressed. He also doesn't like the handcuffs on the teenagers. Oscar tells them to take them off. Fran takes this gesture as friendly and calls the guard names. But the tutor instantly restores the social hierarchy. He twists the insolent child's arm, pushes his face into the wall, and reads out the basic rules, among which there must be respectful silence in the presence of elders. The right to speak is a privilege. Fran is cut bald, given a uniform, and taken to the rest of the group, kids with bloody marks on their chins watching the daily video. They greet the new kid with a rehearsed speech. When Fran tries to talk to a neighbor, Father Oscar presses pause and the kids jump out of their seats, reciting the rules of silence. Disappointed by this coherence, the hero looks around in a slump, realizing that he is not going to be trifled with here. Further routine includes strictly regulated and useful work for the benefit of the community. Collecting clothespins and group lunches in the canteen. Fran looks around at her new comrades, trying to memorize the mandatory shout-outs. They are shown TV spots in which psychologists hammer into their heads the theses of acceptable behavior. Nando's father also stands out among the educators. Oscar reprimands him for his appearance and the gum he serves. A bad example to the pupils. The teenagers also talk to a psychologist who asks them not only about their hidden fears, but also about their relationship with their parents. Fran admits that he misses his father, but he is saddened by the fact that Louis has never really shown fatherly love, including to his mother, who left the family when he was a child. The teaching staff of the boarding school, headed by Oscar, discusses the upcoming Freedom Day, a kind of celebration for the students to show them what life outside the institution can be like. Nando is new, he doesn't know what it is. And he gets a little teasing from his co-workers, to which he reacts with a pathetic speech. Later, during lunch, Nando takes out his anger on one of the pupils and beats his face against the table while the other children hurriedly eat, pretending that nothing is happening. During the educational process, Nando gets carried away and pours pepper gas into the child's eyes. This does not please the director of the boarding school. Rich parents don't pay money to have their children maimed. Oscar manages to keep the matter quiet with a light reprimand to his subordinate, followed by a face slam on the table. Soon Fran successfully memorizes the rules, but he is not yet familiar with the punishments, so one day after lights out he sneaks out of the room unnoticed by the guards. He goes down to the floor below, where the sensory deprivation unit is located. Complete or partial isolation from the outside world. Even simple conversation is forbidden here. In one of the rooms, the hero sees a teenager tied to a gurney. His eyes and ears are covered, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Fran takes off his mask and headphones, and the poor man screams at him to kill him out of mercy. Frightened by this reaction, Fran runs back, but the guards notice the escape from the bedroom. The alarm is raised. The hunt for him begins. The hero hides in a corner, and when a security guard enters, rushes at him and beats him into a bloody mess until the backup twists him up. For this act, Oscar's father sentences the entire group to punishment. The children are placed face down on the floor, resting their chins on the floor. While they lie motionless, the wardens, from time to time, turn on the lights and loud music. The situation is reminiscent of a Pokemon episode, inducing epileptic seizures. After serving her sentence, Fran gets her bloody mark on her chin. At the same time, the children's parents gather for their own rehabilitation program led by psychologist Helena. Luis tells that he cannot find a common language with his son, to which the doctor replies that dialogue is the participation of two parties. Therefore, not only children have to learn obedience, but also parents are obliged to participate in their lives. Helena cites Sandra and her parents as a successful example. The girl graduated from the program. The adults talk about how their lives have changed since their daughter's return. But the story ends with the girl peeing herself and the mother leading her away. Back home, Luis goes into his son's room as the psychologist advised. On his computer, he watches a music video of his son fooling around with his friends. Luis himself is among the images. Offspring secretly filmed it at work. The clip makes the father smile, and the next morning he goes to the boarding school to pick up his son. However, Oscar shows him a video of beating up a guard and convinces him that Fran is not yet ready to adapt to society. While watching another video, the young man makes a joke, which is heard by the caretakers. The group is led to another punishment for not getting into the time after time repeating my talking points. They will have to spend more than 24 hours on their feet with their hands tied and blindfolded. Only the one who lasts the longest will pass the test, and the rest will be sent to the sensory isolation room. Those who squat, the guards take them out. At the same time, the parents undergo another training session on mutual understanding. Luis gets to know Sandra's parents. They are worried about their daughter's mental health, but hope the trainings will help. The next day, the remaining teenagers are fed, but the portions are one less than the captives. Unable to agree, the children argue and the guards take all the food away from them. Closer to nightfall, as the second 24 hours begin, Helena arrives in the cage. A woman videotapes the boys to gather evidence of the cruel methods used at the boarding school. Nando catches her and takes her to Oscar, but the supervisor sees nothing wrong with leaking the data. All these methods are legal. On the third day, Fran is the last one left standing and returns to a measured life on schedule. Meanwhile, Luis develops a warm relationship with Sandra's mother. They have lunch together. Their acquaintance develops into a romantic interest. But while she is kissing Luis in a parking lot, her daughter watches Helena's torture videos, unable to withstand the accumulated memories of the experience. The girl throws herself off the roof right in front of her father, who is immersed in his work. The director reprimands Oscar for leaking information. This leads to a tightening of the rules and regime at the boarding school. The pupils are literally forced to exercise. Some of them vomit right in the gym. He also continues to practice beating with the tacit consent of the rest of the teaching staff. All of this leads to Fran's rebellion. At a certain point, he freezes in place and won't leave the cafeteria. Oscar orders him to be dragged off to the sensory isolation room. There they tie him up and cover his eyes and ears. After a while, the lack of outside information causes his brain to hallucinate. Images evoked from the past. The torture ends when Freedom Day arrives. Men's and women's groups gather in the gym to dance a waltz. A jaded Fran is brought in too, but does not participate, but watches from the sidelines, sitting in a chair. The students, divided into pairs, waltz on command. But one of the boys, looking at Fran's daring open rebellion, freezes. The others follow suit. Despite shouts and blows from Oscar's father, the event is thwarted by Fran's smirking grin. Nando even had to twist the supervisor before he maimed anyone in a tantrum. Luis admits that he wants to take his son out of the boarding school, and the woman says it's the right decision. After what was done to her daughter's psyche there the next day, the man arrives at the boarding school. Fran is taken out at once, without even trying to dissuade the father. The teenager silently gets into the car, without even saying hello to Luis. On the way home, he stares blankly out the window. At home, he meets his girlfriend and asks how she is doing. He does not talk about his adventures at the boarding school. He only regrets that there are many more children left in the walls. Fran won't talk to her father. True, he stopped being rude too. The guy gets rid of the memorabilia of his room, thus breaking the connection with his past self. He doesn't accept gifts from his father and spends his free time yelling out the window into the rainy emptiness of the big city. But one day, standing in the kitchen, he reflexively repeats a speech from the boarding school, which provokes a dialogue. Fran accuses his father of deliberately handing him over to a sadist for torture. Louis objects that he was tricked. He then reads a monologue confessing to his son that it's not easy for him to raise him alone either. After his mother abandoned them, considering both of them unnecessary, it is hard for a man to admit it, and the son only aggravates the situation by blaming his father. In the next scene, they drive in silence in a car to some house. Louis gets out to give the owner's papers from around the corner of the view, can't see who exactly. As they pull away, Fran asks Mom if it was Mom. Instead of answering, the father gets out of the car and walks away in the rain. His son catches up with him and they stand together, hugging and hiding their tears in the rain. That's the end of it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel and leave your opinion in the comments. See you soon.